Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to the Football Diary podcast. Wow, it's been a mad one, hasn't it? England just through to the quarterfinals of the Euros by the skin of their teeth. A last-minute equaliser with an overhead kick from Jude Bellingham, keeping England in the tie with 30 seconds remaining of the game against Slovakia. So lucky, and such a weird feeling, I think, for England fans to see such a dramatic finish and way to advance, but actually feel like what a weird game to go through on, because let's be honest, it was pretty crap, wasn't it, Dave? I'll start with you. Let's talk about that weird feeling England fans are feeling right now, because again, England flattered the deceived, didn't they? They set up slightly differently with Kobbie Mainoo, but there weren't enough changes, I don't think, to satisfy England fans' kind of urge to kind of press on and to kick on and to take the game by the scruff of the neck. And it's probably the worst performance of the tournament so far, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't think we expected it could get much worse. But, after this game, I think overwhelming feelings of frustration, for one. Relief, definitely being another, because it looked like we were going to be exiting in the competition. Bellingham, a lot of people have criticised him for having a poor tournament, but he's scored probably our two most important goals of the campaign. It just makes you wonder if we can get these players to click. What are the possibilities? Bellingham, look how the season that he's had at Real Madrid. He is a match winner, and I think you find it difficult to see a team without him in there, even though he's performed, not to the best of his abilities.
Well, we talked on our channel, actually, didn't we? We put a poll out just to say what midfield combination viewers will want to see, and we'll discuss that later on, actually. But I'll talk to you, Miles, first. I know we were trying to steer away from any negativity here on this podcast, especially while England are still in the tournament. But can you sum up how you're feeling first, mate, to describe how that victory and the manner of the victory and the performance that preceded it kind of makes you feel?
Yeah, do you know what? I think I'd probably disagree with a fair bit of maybe how you and Dave are feeling. I think, actually, I don't think it was our worst performance of the tournament. I think it was some individuals' worst performance of the tournament. And actually, as a team, I thought they probably had more of the right idea than we've seen so far. I thought the difference that Mainoo made was absolutely huge. And I don't think the system was necessarily the thing at fault here. I just think it was the overall performance of some individuals. And that probably shouldn't fall on Southgate for a change. Like, there are definite things he could have done better. Like, I think he could have been far more proactive in the second half with the changes that he made, as we always say about Southgate. But the link-up play and the quick passing movements that we saw, particularly between Mainoo, Rice and Saka, and then Bellingham kind of coming into that every now and again, I think showed what this England side can do when they're trying to break forward. And it seemed that they were trying to do that. But the final product and moments of some of the individuals were just awful. Like, I think we can say it was Kyle Walker's worst performance we've seen for a long time. John Stones' worst performance we've seen in a long time. Trippier was terrible, if we're honest. And then Foden, Kane, Bellingham, all three of them could have come off if we really are brutal about it. And it's interesting because Southgate holds on to them because he trusts them in big moments, and they come up with the goods in the end. So I think we have to be balanced at how we think about it. It wasn't blow the other side away, steal, like smash a victory home and everyone goes home happy. But they won a game of tournament football, and ultimately that's what they need to do. And sometimes you need that resilience to just hang on in there and don't give up. How many other teams would have given up in the 95th minute and just thought, yeah, we're going home now? So I think there has to be some credit as well for the fact that they stayed on in there.
Oh, I agree. I think winning the game in any way, shape or form is what tournament football is all about, isn't it? And the preceding 95 minutes, I think, were a really difficult watch. And I think not seeing a shot on target was probably the most frustrating thing, especially when we had the tools to do it, but just not the end product to kind of produce it. So I think I can see why England fans are angry and a bit frustrated, but I also don't understand why in the middle of a tournament that would take over the overriding feeling. It's relief, like you say, more than anything. Dave, when you saw Bellingham equalise, did you feel like it was kind of the just rewards for all the effort England were putting in? Because I think in the last 10 minutes of the actual 90, the changes that Southgate made were actually starting to kind of produce something, weren't they?
Like Miles said, I think the changes were made too late. If you look at Cole Palmer, I think came on, didn't he? Was it in the 60th minute? And then the second sub didn't come on until the 83rd minute, which I thought was ridiculous. But we have got the potential. We've got the players to make a difference. And, we've come to such a pivotal time in the tournament now. I think those decisions that are there to be made are so crucial to to what happens with us now. And there's no excuses where, obviously, in the past years where we've not had the players there. We've got the players to do it. I do feel like the balance of this side isn't right. I think I agree with what Miles is saying. I think there were promising signs, but it's on the manager to make the right decisions with that personnel and put the players in the right positions. Phil Foden just doesn't work for me on that left-hand side, especially when you've not got a full-back who's going to make those overlapping runs. Luke Shaw is absolutely pivotal to that left flank. It just doesn't work. That left flank is completely anonymous. It may as well not be there because nothing goes down there. Nothing is constantly played to Phil Foden. He's got no option. He looks back, it gets passed backwards and gets recycled into midfield. They go down the right. Everything really went down the right-hand side. But unfortunately, Saka just had an under-par performance himself.
Do you think?
I
thought he was okay. I think he got frustrated at times. And when he was asked to play in a different position, he actually responded brilliantly.
He had an absolutely brilliant opportunity. Mainu played a brilliant pass through to him. His first touch was horrific. If his touch was there, it was even half decent, it would have been a shot on goal. It would have been a goal scoring opportunity. But I just feel as though when Saka actually went to left back role, I thought he looked really comfortable. I think I agree with what we've said. Obviously, Miles, what you said on the pod a couple of weeks ago. I think that's an avenue that needs to be explored if Luke Shaw doesn't come into this team. I know Jordan Pickford made some comments I saw today that apparently saying he's ready to play, and he said himself he's ready to play, but it's up to the manager to, give him the opportunity, which is promising to hear if that is the case.
It doesn't help that though. There's already changes to be made to that back line in the next game. Like obviously Gahey picking that yellow up, I felt awful for him because he got an absolute hospital pass from Trippier. Like it put him in such trouble that he had to make that challenge, and now he misses a quarter-final. And he's been England's best defender by a country mile this tournament so far. So if you're already changing one of the centre backs, I almost think there might be an air of reluctance to then change the full backs as well, particularly to experiment. Because let's be honest, when Saka was playing left back, he wasn't playing left back; he was playing left winger. We just didn't have a left back. That was what really happened. There was twice he probably stood in a defensive position. We didn't have to do any defending because England were on the front foot. So I don't think we really saw what he was capable of in that area. I just think all tournament, Saka has been England's most threatening player because he's trying to beat a man. He's trying to get to the byline very often. And okay, Kane and Bellingham got the goals here, but you can't tell me that Saka wasn't the best attacking player that England had on the pitch for that whole game. And then you all this clamour for Cole Palmer. I didn't think he really did anything when he came on. He had a couple of opportunities where he could have driven at a defender, and it kind of was nothing. I just think that's why Southgate is shoehorning Foden and Bellingham into this team right now, because the one he leaves out will be the wrong answer in the media's eyes, won't it? Like I think already there's screams of, get Cole Palmer off the bench, get him into the team. And if he did, it would be, not for Saka or, not for Foden. They've got to play as well. It's an impossible job, really. I think, realistically, he's just got to be strong-willed enough to go, Foden's the one it's not working for, and I'm going to take him out. That's the obvious answer to me.
I think the problem for me is Saka's the only one in there who makes runs in behind, or has the ability to do that. And he's got the pace. How many players with raw pace have we got now, specifically in those wide areas, that can actually run at players and beat a man? We don't. We've got Saka. Cole Palmer's not the quickest player. He's more of a drop the shoulder, create space for himself. He's really creative player in that sense. You've got Ollie Watkins who could potentially do it, maybe do a job, but we don't have anyone like Sterling or Rashford anymore. He's taken the tried and tested players out of there, and he's not really replaced that profile of player.
If you're going to do it, then swap Saka and Foden, because Saka is much better at getting to the byline and putting a cross in. And I know he doesn't play on the left for Arsenal, but look at where all of England's goals have come from so far. Every single one, crossing the ball in or getting the ball into the box. And we don't do it enough because we've got inverted wingers or Phil Foden playing in the middle. Like we don't seem to have anyone that's going to get to the byline and just put the ball in. And Harry Kane isn't the sort of person who is coming deep and then beating a man. So you've nullified that. And look, we saw it. But Tony came on. To be honest, how I feel. I'd like to see Watkins play. But I completely understand why you put Tony on, and you saw what the game plan was when he was there, because it was We've just got to get the ball forward and in dangerous areas, and there needs to be someone who can compete in the air. Okay, that works. That's worked for England at every tournament we've had under Southgate. Normally it's Maguire, but now we don't have that. How are we going to activate the skills of our forward line? And realistically, that's two areas that Kane and Tony are both very good at, although Kane didn't really show that in this game.
I think it speaks volumes. It didn't actually look like we were going to score from a set piece. And the amount of corners we had in this game and free kicks, they absolutely dominated that penalty area, the Slovakian defence. I thought they actually defended their box really well. But we just don't look like scoring from corners or free kicks anymore.
Okay, true. Sorry, Mike, this is becoming a back and forth between me and Dave. but do you know what it is? Who took all the set pieces in this game? It was Trippier or Foden.
Yeah.
Trippier or Foden, right? Which team scored the most goals from set pieces last season in the Premier League? Arsenal. And you've got Saka and Rice, who took all of their corners on the pitch, and you're giving every corner to Phil Foden to hit the first man or Kieran Trippier to put the ball in the keeper's hands.
It was so frustrating to watch. Yeah. And that's why we didn't have any shots on target until the 95th minute, because nothing had an end product. Every ball into the box was just comfortably cleared. And obviously, Slovakia was so compact in that middle of the defence that the only way through was either a pin perfect cross or playing it through them. And I don't understand why we didn't play it on the ground a little bit more and try and weave our way in and out and string some passes together. And I think that's the forward line I think we have at the moment, rather than trying to get the ball in the box all the time. But I still feel like the midfield is a little bit imbalanced. Like, it feels like Declan Rice is doing the job of everyone, whereas actually he just needs to pick a role. And if Mainoo's there, why are we playing a double pivot? Why not just unleash one of them to go forward a little bit more? It feels like that's still a little bit
Do you not think you did?
No, I don't. I just feel like there was a huge chasm between Mainoo and Rice, and then Bellingham in the number 10. There was like nothing in between the players sitting back and then Bellingham going forward. So there was that disconnect between defence and attack. And for me, that didn't feel like it was dynamic enough to kind of, catch them on the fly and try and catch them by surprise. And they had time to sit deep and get in position before England could do anything.
I think one thing that stands out massively to me is that we're not 100%. We're not using Foden and Mainoo to the best of their abilities, because Mainoo is absolutely outstanding at beating a press. But we seem reluctant. We seem reluctant to play it into his feet, even when he's got a defender next to him. You've got to trust your players, and it seems like there's players that, where they're instructed otherwise, if there were players around them, play it wide, play it in space, play it safe, rather than trust those individuals to do what they are best at. And Kobbie Mainoo, all season for Man United, is beat midfield just with a slight movement or drop of a shoulder, round the corner. And Foden, we know he's absolutely brilliant at all, but you just don't see it. We've not seen it all tournament.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I thought Mainoo did do that, and I actually don't think they played as a double pivot. I thought they both sometimes sat back while the other one pressed, and I thought actually they complemented each other really well. They were England's two best players, Rice and Mainoo, by a distance.
He's done it in this tournament, but he's not done it as often as he does for United. He does it all the time.
I think you've got to bear in mind. Yeah, and also he's an 18-year-old kid making his first start in a major tournament. Like, there are a lot of stars in this England team that all want time on the ball, that all are going to bring their own thing. That doesn't exist at Man United right now. So realistically, the amount of reliance on Mainoo at Man United is probably too much. Whereas actually, I can see him being quite effective as part of the system with England. Because the midfield three that we had in this game, it's convinced me that's the right midfield three. I would like to see us continue with Rice, Mainoo and Bellingham. I think it's just a case of maybe moving Foden out of the team for a while. And that's where I think England become more threatening, because I do think the best passages of play England had were when they were keeping the ball on the ground, playing quick passing between that triangle.
Yeah,
and it worked really well until the last ball, because I think Bellingham was off his game a little bit. There were a couple of moments where he beat a couple of players, and I thought, he's picking that confidence up again. But his passing, his final ball, it's always a bit off. Mm-hmm. And Kane, you can't drop Harry Kane. I understand that, but he's got to start taking him off earlier, because he gets the winner, and it looks like that's why we've stuck with him. But anyone would have put that away. He had miles of space in the middle of the box. He should have scored earlier. He had a free header earlier in the game that he completely scuffed wide as well. Like, I think he's performed so poorly, and they're the two that I think you've got to look at, whether Foden and Kane really are as effective as they need to be for England.
Yeah, it's a bold call, I think, to do anything with them, isn't it? And I think that's what he's got to do. We've got to that stage now where we're playing a Switzerland team next who are absolutely in great form and do look like they could humiliate us if we show up in the same way again. So, there's an element of, I think he's got to tweak what he's got again. There's so many fans asking for wholesale changes. I don't think that's the answer either.
No, it won't.
But then to play the way we've been playing now for 4 games is just, there's got to be some change. And it's going to involve players like Kane coming off sooner, like you say. If he's not producing, let's take him off. Ivan Toney saying that he was annoyed that Southgate was putting him on at the time he did, and actually producing something that they needed is kind of proof that there's squad players sitting on the bench waiting for their moment. And I think with the right substitutions at the right time, he could really play his aces, couldn't he, at the right moment in a game?
So the only thing I have about that, I get what Tony's saying. I think it was mad for Southgate to vocalise it at the end of the game. I think it was probably mad for Tony to say it. No, I think it's mad for Southgate and Tony to have had that conversation in the middle of the game, first of all, because if you're Ivan Toney, take whatever you can get. Southgate was right. We might get one more chance and you'll be involved in it. You probably should have brought him on earlier if they're going to do it, but just take it. And for Southgate to put it out there afterwards, the thing that's worked so well for this England team under Southgate was the harmony in the camp. And I'll be honest, I am worried that we're getting back that England arrogance and that individuality that tore us apart in the previous generation.
Possibly.
England worked really well as a unit previously, and for all the flaws of players like, I don't know, Jordan Henderson and Calvin Phillips for not being glamorous and not being technically the most gifted footballers, the camp was very united. And we've talked about this already with them missing characters like Grealish and Maguire. But when you see that comment about Ivan Toney afterwards, Bellingham's just had like the best moment of the tournament, and he stood in front of the fans going, "Who else?" I didn't like that, I'll be honest. Like, in the moment, you feel like, oh, brilliant, like, fair play to him. But realistically, that's not what you want. It's not all about him. And the fact that we've got so many individual players with brilliance that can't fit into a system tells me that actually we're really moving away from the thing that makes international teams very often very successful. And that makes me a bit nervous. So Tony's another one where I don't want to see that. I want him to go, do you know what, boss? Yeah, give me that chance. Don't matter if it's a minute, 5 minutes, 20 minutes. I'm going for it with everything I got. And he did when he was on the pitch. He let his football do the talking, and I'm really glad of that. And he obviously got longer than he intended to. But I didn't like the communication about it. I just feel like Southgate's shooting himself in the foot again.
No, I think he probably got permission from Tony to say it beforehand. I'd like to think as a good man manager, you'd do that and say, am I okay to say this in the press conference? But if he didn't, you're right. It's kind of wild, isn't it? But it might have just been an off the cuff in the heat of the moment remark because emotions were high. It was a massive relief, wasn't it? Dave, that goal though from Jude Bellingham, I want to try and reflect on the positives. It was so well executed. And I know we were throwing everything at Slovakia at that point, and something had to come off at some point, surely, yeah. But he connected with it so well, and it's moments like that that do win games for teams in tournaments, isn't it? And Bellingham's a big game player who, again, didn't play brilliantly, but he'll be remembered for that for a long, long time if we do well, especially.
Yeah, it was one of those clutch moments, wasn't it? It seems like this Real Madrid aura is rubbing off on him even more so, and that's what we need, and that's what we've had in the past. I know Miles mentions about the arrogance, and to be honest, I didn't really like that comment myself, or that sort of action. I agree. I think there are so many players who are capable of scoring goals and winning matches like that, but we do need players in there with that bit of arrogance and self-belief. And I think that's what sets him apart from other players, is that I wouldn't say he's probably technically the best in our team, but he's got that mentality and he wants to win. And I think that's what makes him different to a lot of those players and those characters in there. It does feel like you have a little bit of advantage when you have a couple of players like that with that kind of mentality. But yeah, the finish was outstanding. I think the way it went in, I wasn't sure at first. I went up and everyone went crazy, but I was on of like, is that hit the side netting, or is it? You have those goals and you see it from those angles, don't you? And the way that it went in. You didn't see the net bulge, but it kind of just like trickled down the side netting. But what a moment,
Yeah.
I think for me, and what Southgate said after the game, he never thought that we'd exit, even at that stage. I couldn't see where a goal was coming from. We didn't look likely to score for me.
I thought we did. I thought we were throwing
There was two moments in that game. We had Declan Rice hit the post. Harry Kane with that free header, which he should have got on target.
Yeah,
should have got on target. That was the best chance of the whole game. He didn't even get on target. They were the only two real moments I can remember is really getting.
The offside goal was really stupid.
Offside goal, yeah. And
that's so poor from Foden to not stay behind the ball there.
Yeah, you're right. It's just timing, isn't it? But I think there are moments in tournaments where you do probably look back, especially if it's a success, and go, you know what, if that had gone differently, if we had another if we had to replay it again, it was 30 seconds shorter, we'd have lost the game, and we'd all been comparing this to the Iceland exit and saying it's probably England's worst exit in a major tournament.
5 minutes were put on the board initially, weren't they? 5 minutes went up, and then they changed it to 6.
So, massive relief. Before we wrap up England conversation, by the way, because it's been 20 minutes of talking about England now, I'm conscious of that. But Dave, this poll we've done on our YouTube channel, so it was deciding between the midfield combinations for the Switzerland game. What did our viewers respond with?
So the options were, I had in there as, I don't think Southgate's going to drop. I don't think personally he's going to drop Bellingham or Foden. I'll be really surprised if he does. So I hope he proves me wrong, because I think it needs to happen for this team to function. So I've had there in the combination of Bellingham dropping deeper into midfield along with Declan Rice. So dropping Kobbie Mainoo and having Phil Foden in the 10. 81% voted that, which I found really surprising, because I think Kobbie Mainoo, particularly in this game, was outstanding.
Yeah.
And the other side of the vote was 19% said keep Kobbie Mainoo in there. Drop Jude Bellingham, bring Phil Foden into the 10. We did have one comment on it from a chap who, to be honest, I should have put this in there, but he said, "What about the drop Phil Foden option?" Which,
that's what I'm saying.
To be honest, I think that'd be a more popular. That'd be quite interesting. I think that the vote for that would have been a lot far higher than dropping Jude Bellingham. Phil Foden, we know, is another one we feel like he should be offering so much more. So it'll be interesting to see what the outcome is anyway for the Switzerland game. I think we've had so many pundits and so many people calling for more wholesale changes in this team. And I think it needs to happen for us to see changes.
And all we'll see is Ezri Konsa for Mark Gahey and potentially Luke Shaw for Trippier.
I thought Konsa played excellent when he came on. I thought he did really well when he came on.
Did his job. Didn't have to do a lot, but did his job. Kept tight. Playing him at left back was really weird. We ended the game with a back five of Saka right back, Kyle Walker right centre back, Stones, Gahey, Konsa left back. You had 3 players out of position in a back five. How do you achieve that?
To be honest, when we went through extra time with the players on the pitch that we had, I did think to myself, we're wide open here. Yes, we've got back in the game and we're winning, but my God, this could all go horribly wrong. It very nearly did a couple of times, didn't it? Like, Slovakia was still pushing, so fair play to England for holding firm, because you don't see them doing that these days too often, do you? But they're through. They play Switzerland next, which is going to be a massive test, and something's got to give. I think we're clear about that. But as we record, the only other team that are through to play in the quarterfinals as well is Spain, who play in the massive game against host Germany in the quarterfinal. They beat Georgia convincingly 4-1 in their round of 16 tie. In a game that was similar to how Slovakia set up, it was a stubborn Georgia performance, and they really gave a good account of themselves, defended very deeply and resolutely, but Spain did exactly what England couldn't do and just played through them, didn't they, Miles? And it was a great performance, I thought, from Spain, and really testament to how far this young team has come on.
Do you remember, Dave, before the podcast, before the Euros, when we did our predictions, and I said Spain would be the first big side out? That aged well, didn't it? Yeah, they've been excellent. They've been really, really good. Yeah. And we've talked a couple of times about the excellent width of this side and how they're using wingers so effectively, which is not necessarily what we've always attributed Spain with. We really think about the players that sit in the middle and kind of pass the ball around in the spaces in the centre of the pitch. And actually now they're exploiting this whole new area, it feels like, and this new generation are bringing about a bit of flair. And all right, people might be laughing at Williams and Yamal for their TikTok videos, but what they're doing on the pitch is really proving themselves on a major stage. And I think it'd be interesting to see whether there's any movement around either of them over the summer, because there's talk that PSG are lining up a world record bid for Yamal, and Williams obviously will have a buyout, and there's already talk of a lot of clubs watching them, but they've definitely given themselves a platform, and they're making Spain probably the favourites for the tournament at the moment. They've been the best side.
I think so. Well, it's funny, Spain and Germany do have a lot of similarities and parallels with the amount of youth in their team, and obviously the pairing, like you say, the young pairing of Yamal and Nico Williams is just like one of the pairings that's really made the difference for Spain. And Williams in particular, Dave, he only turns 22, I think, next week. But he's showing the kind of maturity that I think even Yamal is looking up to him as some kind of mentor, isn't he? They've got like this big brother, little brother relationship that's really making a difference to the way Spain attack. And I looked at Spain, I must admit, before the tournament and saw Alvaro Morata being the captain and starting every game and thought, what have they got going forward? But the width, like Miles said, has proved really successful for them, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think the relationships all across that front line, I think it's blossomed. And as the tournament's gone on, they've looked even better. And I think particularly for some of the goals, if you look at some of the similarities in those connections that those attackers have, you look at Lamine Yamal's assist. I mean, it was almost a carbon copy of one of the goals he assisted in another game as well. But they just look so good. I think Nico Williams he's going to be a bargain, I think, for anyone who gets him that release clause.
Well, apparently not for his wages, though. Apparently he's asking for crazy money. That's put a lot of clubs off.
I mean, don't all agents, they're going to try and get the best deal for their clients as they can. But I do feel as though now, particularly, it's interesting, isn't it, with this Spain side? Because, like you say, we kind of wrote them off a little bit because there was a little bit of an unknown quantity. But then you've got some of the players, you forget the likes of Dani Olmo, he's kind of gone off the scene a little bit in the European. Great goal. They've got talent all over the field. Fabian Ruiz, what a tournament he's having as well. So I think the likes of Williams, Olmo, Yamal, that they're going to be your match winners. Nico Williams, he's going from strength to strength. I just feel as though he, like you say, he's got that experience around him to guide him as well. The likes of Morata, who's in there, Rodri, and again, he's been one of the players of the tournament for me so far. I think he's so good to watch.
And Pedri as well. You forget that we've mentioned before their midfield is so well balanced and seems to make the difference. But I think for me, Miles, Williams has been the player that stood out quite a lot. Yamal, there was a lot expected of him, but I didn't quite expect Williams to be as progressive and as forward and as adept at this level as he is. Has he surprised you particularly?
Well, he's been on my radar for a little while because Villa were looking at him for pretty much as soon as Emery came in. So it's been over 12 months now. And obviously kind of following in the footsteps of his brother as well. So it's interesting you mentioned about Yamal being like his little brother when he's literally had his football education from his big brother at club level as well. He's electric, isn't he? He's got bundles and bundles of pace, but seems to have the know-how of how to beat a man as well without using it. Like the way the ball sticks to his feet. It's a really archetypal winger, and I don't know, it's been a while since we've seen that for Spain particularly. So, I think it's excellent to see him kind of kick on and lead the team forward. They needed a talismanic figure, really, for all the organisation that we praise them for in the middle. You're right, we talked about Morata and thought that's not someone who's going to spearhead a successful attack to get them deep in a tournament. But apparently Williams is, and that's excellent for Spain.
Spain-Germany then. Tasty prospect on Friday, isn't it? Wow.
Great.
It's a shame that these two aren't meeting later in the tournament, really, isn't it? But the draw is what it is. And Spain-Germany, Dave, how do you see that one playing out?
Oof. Tasty encounter. It's almost a bit good. It really is. It's worthy of a final or even a semi-final. I think it's probably come a little bit earlier than we would have liked, but it's going to be what a game. I think particularly all over. I can see goals. I can see a lot of goals, to be fair. I thought Germany were probably slightly lucky against Denmark. To be honest, we've not mentioned a couple of instances in that game.
Very true. Yeah. Well, let's switch it back to Germany then, because we've not talked about their fortunate progress against Denmark, have we? And how unlucky Denmark were. But I think they finished the game off pretty well, didn't they, Germany, against Denmark, Miles? Because they recognised that they had fortune on their side, which, again, in big tournaments you need if you're going to win them. But just a word for Denmark, really. Dave's kind of pre-tournament dark horses, but really
they're biased there. To a degree, but the quality that Germany have was always going to come up trumps, wasn't it? And again, that young player, Musiala, he's lighting up the tournament as well. It's interesting. It feels like we're in a generation of football now where the kind of stars that we were used to are all kind of coming to an end. Like the Real Madrid boys, like Toni Kroos is retiring. Obviously, Modric is probably finished with Croatia. Ronaldo is probably in his last European Championships, although you never know with him. And we were kind of looking at, right, who's next? We have Mbappe, we know that. And all the talk has been about players kind of sub 21 or 21 and under. It's like Bellingham, Musiala, Williams even. Like, it's interesting seeing these stars come through. And Musiala seems to have taken the weight of a whole nation in a home tournament and said, yeah, that's fine with me. I'll help carry you through. So for him and for Kai Havertz as well, to get themselves on the score sheet again, it only builds them into the tournament. You have to say, the team that comes through that side of the draw, they're favourites for the final, surely, because they'll have had some hard-fought battles on the way there.
Well, on England's side of the draw now, it's probably Switzerland, I think, are the favourites, aren't they, looking at who's left, based on form as well. So, yeah, you'd imagine if they met one of those teams, either Switzerland or England, not to discount the teams left on that side of the draw, but you'd imagine they fancy their chances, right? So I'm not going to ask you guys to predict a winner at this moment in time. It still feels like it's far too early because it's such an unpredictable tournament so far, isn't it? So instead, I'm going to move on to transfer news in the Premier League. If you want to talk about some players that have been moving before this 30th of June PSR deadline. We mentioned a few in a previous pod. Any standout for you, Miles? Any that are making you kind of raise an eyebrow for various reasons?
We talked about the PSR last week, didn't we? And I know the full audio podcast we had some issues with, but we'll get some footage out to you eventually, I'm sure. Yeah. So I don't really want to go over too much of it, but I think for all the criticism that like Villa and Everton got over their deals, and then we're seeing this back and forth between Newcastle and Nottingham Forest, that like, if you're going to question deals, well, there's one. But I said last time, you do what you've got to do. And if you're being hamstrung in the market by rules that were put in to basically protect a hierarchy, they've got to do it. So Elliot Anderson to Nottingham Forest. That's the one we're going to talk about, I suppose, isn't it? 35 million. Yeah. There's talk, obviously, if Vlachodimos has already gone the other way, there's also talk of Anthony Elanga doing the same. It's a lot of money for Forest to be spending when there's so many concerns around their PSR as well. I mean, they've made 20 million selling Diakate to Lyon, right?
Yeah, I think that's all but done and dusted. I guess they looked at their finances and opened their books and gone, yeah, there's room to do this. They must have done. But it can't happen without moves happening in other directions. And that's the thing. There's so many clubs in that questionable area of PSR borderline skirting the rules that are kind of going, we need to get some money coming in here. Quite a few academy players have obviously gone because of the pure profit that they're going to generate. I think Elliot Anderson's a decent future deal, Dave, don't you? Because, I mean, for Newcastle, he didn't feature as much as he'd have liked to last season with injury towards the end, but I think they're getting a player with a lot of potential and quite a high ceiling considering.
Yeah, and I think there'll be some disgruntled Newcastle fans over this, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think they warmed
Anthony
really
Gordon's
nicely.
Came out publicly.
Yeah, I think they'll be really disappointed in it. I think they really warmed to Elliot Anderson, and I think there's a lot of potential there, and I think that's where the fee comes from. He's a really talented all-round player. He's not really got any outstanding weaknesses at all, but I think it will suit that Forest team, and I think there's a bit of an over-reliance on Morgan Gibbs-White. So I think to have him in there with Gibbs-White and provide that bit of creativity, I don't think we've seen enough of it at this level. But again, it was his first real, campaign as such for Newcastle, and like you say, it was curtailed, unfortunately, by that back injury. I think he was out for nearly 4 months, which is really unfortunate. But I feel as though he will give a bit more creativity in those areas. He's a really good carry the ball. He's a great dribbler. His loan on at Bristol Rovers, I think he had 13 goals and assists in that campaign. So it's a little snippet of what he can do, and I think they'll be looking to him to give Forest that sort of creativity, which I think they probably need in the midfield area if Gibbs White isn't providing it at times.
Like, I know Maresca's there and knows him well, but Shrewsbury Hall to Chelsea, what do you think of that? Like that seems weird on his part. Like, I know obviously there's always the pull of a big club, but Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo, Gallagher, if they keep him, I don't know who else they got in those areas already. They've obviously got a few young players like Chukwuemeka there, Romeo Lavia. Like, the midfield's quite stacked. Yeah, you forget, don't you?
Yeah.
And
Shrewsbury Hall in. He was one of the best players in the Championship last season, but I don't think at his age it's wise necessarily for him to move into a team where there's that much competition. You're right. It's almost like a Danny Drinkwater sort of situation for me, where it's a British player. So in some ways, it's balanced their quota. I don't want to be too kind of cynical about it, but it does look like some kind of manoeuvre for Chelsea to kind of, meet quotas.
I think he was lined up for Brighton, wasn't he? I think
they had the deal
like
agreed.
A better fit. Yeah.
Much better. That would have been a great deal, I think, for everyone involved, really, because Leicester need the money as well, if we're honest. That's unfortunate for them. But that seems like a much brighter option, surely. Pardon the pun.
Yeah. I'm going to end the podcast there because as we're recording, France are playing Belgium, and I know we're all keen to watch them. Obviously, Miles has got his jersey on, so we're going to see how that's playing out. Thanks for your time, guys. And again, please do like, subscribe, and follow us on whichever channel you're listening or watching us on. But enjoy the tournament. See you soon.
See you later.